Welcome to the Organizational Maneuverability Radio Show, defying gravity so your team can soar at altitude, with host Marshall Goldsmith, executive coach Randy Swaim. You bet. I'll just give you a very quick intro to those two in the fighter pilot mindset. But basically, what you have, because it's very aligned with leadership and performing in an organizational maneuverability, unpredictable, changing environment and everything. But the barrage fire, when you're talking about flying along, if the enemy doesn't feel like they can aim for you, and the enemy just puts up a whole lot of bullets up there all around your airplane. It's not aimed, but it's just putting up a bunch of stuff up there, hoping that maybe one of them will hit your airplane or whatever. That's barrage fire. Aim fire is where it's all sort of out in front of you, because guess what? They are aiming for your airplane, and it's all kind of in line with where you're going. So that's the key aspect of the difference between barrage fire and aim fire. But when you're talking about leading a team in a unpredictable, rapidly changing environment, and this is very aligned with my concept of organizational maneuverability. But the bottom line is, when you're leading your team forward in a mission, in a strategy that you're trying to accomplish, for your company, for your clients, whatever kind of thing, when you're going forward, you may experience some of those aspects that you didn't fully understand. You may have some factors that come on scene that are maybe 3 or 4 or 5 factors that all come in, and it's just all over like this. That would be sort of like the barrage fire that you're having to deal with. If you're going into a certain direction and there's about 3 or 4 factors that come on scene that want to disrupt you from what you're doing, but they're all sort of in line with where you're trying to go, guess what? That's more like aimed fire. And it's just a basic idea that leaders have to have a simple understanding on, for sure. But that's
Very
kind of
good.
the business aspect of it and the leadership aspect of it, from the lesson from my military days. It could just be something that is not overly disruptive to what you're trying to accomplish. It's distracting your thinking. And when you look at neuroscience and how your processing is working, right? If you're being distracted just because of this, guess what? You're not getting what you need done. And also, by the way, you're not leading your team well, because if they have a sense that you're being distracted by this, that can be a big problem. But the bottom line is, it could be that the factor that is coming in seen is not a huge thing. It's not anything we need to even worry about right now. Let's watch it, but let's keep going, kind of thing. Uh, but the other aspect of it is, if it is something that is disruptive to what you're trying to accomplish and is going to truly getting in the way and making it so that you can't get there, guess what? You may need to tweak your adjustment on your strategy on how you're getting there and all of that sort of stuff. And those are just aspects about, that sort of difference when you're talking about leading your team as a leader. And that's a huge difference between a leader and a manager, because the manager typically just tells the people what to do and go do this. Well, leaders are required to have more understanding of those kind of factors and those kind of situations. But it's having clarity on that as to, is it something that's really, really causing a problem, or is it just kind of getting in the way a little bit, but not knocking us back or anything like that. So you never know, but it's you got to have understanding on that, for sure. Bottom line is, and there's a lot of ways that this can happen, but when you're talking about aimed fire, when you have a little bit of a strategy in mind with you and your team, guess what? You may have a couple of people on your in your company, or maybe even people on your team, because as a leader, one of the things you got to have some understanding of is who is actually on your team. Because guess what? The strategy that you employ may depend a little bit on the background and the team and how they're really working together as a synergistic, group and everything. But the bottom line is, when you're talking about aim fire, if you see one or two factors that come on scene that are looking to shut you down on this, that would be more like the aim fire. When somebody's, it's not like they're just trying to distract you and push you aside or anything like that. But a lot of times, and you know this, that every now and then you'll have somebody that tries to throw in an aspect that, in their mind will just shut you down and cause you to not do this. And you know what? If that's what you're sensing and that's what you're experiencing, you have to have awareness on whether that's true, whether it's really what he's talking about. If somebody comes up and it turns out that one thing that you're doing turns out to be illegal, guess what? That may be something that you got to tweak differently and you got to adjust or whatever kind of thing. But if you have any factors like that that come on scene that are trying to shut you down and shoot you down, if you want to call it that, guess what? That would be more like aim fire in a leadership team where you're trying to accomplish something within your organization. And having awareness of that and what you need to do about that is is everything. Because if it turns out that your team has a great amount of threat, if they keep going on this, that can be an aim fire type thing. But to what extent is that really true? Or to what extent can we overcome that and really develop and become and achieve, kind of thing. And those are aspects about true leadership that a lot of people don't understand. It's not just about you dictating and pointing fingers and telling them what to do. It's about truly leading your team. And here's the thing, a big part about leading people is modeling for them. And I'll tell you what, when your team sees you thinking that way, also within yourself, instead of just trying to get a pat on the back with yourself, but when people see you doing that, they will begin to trust that positive reaction and start to follow it themselves and start to become that, so that you can overcome that. But basically, the aim fire is stuff that are kind of uh, 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 individual situations that come in that are there to try to disrupt what you're doing. And you know what? And it is very a key to understand, but it has to do with true situational awareness. You know what? If they don't have true situational awareness, if the leader is doing nothing but saying, "Here's what we're going to do," and nothing should get in the way, da, 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 you know what? You're not leading the team correctly, and you're not really getting there. But the bottom line is, with your true situational awareness, if you have an idea as to what factors are going to come on, either in the barrage fire or the aim fire kind of thing, and what do we need to do if those come out? And by the way, if we have an idea on the strategy, and this is one thing I've asked people before when I was leading them, if you have if you got a certain clarity on the strategy that you're going to do, guess what? One of the questions I would ask them is, so what's the unexpected factor that will make you go, whoa, if it comes on scene today or as we go through here? And then
Mm,
when they come up with a couple of possibilities with that, I'll say, if those happen, what are you going to do about it? And what I'm doing is I'm developing their mental processing and their awareness of it in neuroscience. But I'm also being a leader. And it's And that's just something that a lot of people don't fully understand. It's not just about dictatorial academic stuff. It's making it so that in the midst of your strategy and your journey, guess what? Radical results can happen. Is this aspect of what you brought in at the very beginning with the different factors that can come on scene, because you got to realize that when you talk about organizational maneuverability concepts or the uh, the unpredictable changing environments out there and all that, guess what? The factors that come on scene are not all just academic. And my question to the leaders would simply be this: if all you're doing is mandating and managing your people and just telling them what to do, and you think that's all you're doing, you're not being a leader. And the other part of it is you're not developing them, because when you do that to them, what they are doing mentally is they're shutting their brain down and they're shutting their processing down initially, and they're just saying, okay, this is what he wants us to do, this is what we'll do, I guess. Don't know if it'll work or not, but we'll see, kind of thing. And if that's what you're doing, you're not being a true leader. And the other part of it is when you understand your team and you're kind of aware of your team, um, realize that you may have had one or two people that retired, and they had one or two new people come into the team, and guess what, those people may have a little bit of a different background on them than the
Mhm.
other two did. And you got to kind of understand what it means to truly be able to lead your people. And when they have sort of a different background, guess what? They may need to really engage their mental processing and their neuroscience up here, and really gain the picture and the real success factors and the real risks and what we need to do if those come on scene. And what is that probably going to look like if we have to do that and everything? And if it does come on, as you kind of said at the very beginning, is it barrage fire or is it aim fire? And what do we need to do for that? And, what do we need to do? And really, if you as the leader is not developing your people in that way, and again, if all you're doing is just telling them what to do, telling them what to think, and just having them shut their brains off, you are not being a leader, and you are not improving your team, and you are not really growing for radical success. A true leader develops your people and really comes alongside and and makes radical things happen, not just because you're dictating to them, but because they are growing in their thinking, in their awareness, in their mental processing of the situations and of the factors that come into play, and able to make the radical solutions that get to radical results. And and that's something you want to kind of be aware of. It's not you just about getting a pat on the back for being the leader, because if it's about as your team is growing, you're actually leading. And a lot of this is the kind of the mental processing aspect of it that a lot of times managers don't have. And you got to be aware of that for your team. You just don't go with rote academic things of telling them what to do. Get their processing going and make it so that as they develop their mental processing and the neuroscience and everything and their ability to assess factors and make good decisions as a team and as a collective team, okay, a synergistic team. If they can do that and you develop them to be able to do that, guess what? Not only are you letting them be ready for really radical success, but you're letting them grow and become, so that guess what? They can actually improve your organization as they go down because they're growing and they're becoming, and they may be brought up to a leadership position at some point kind of thing because of what you helped develop in them. And when you're developing, it's not just you telling them what to do and all that. It's about um, getting their processing and their mental thinking going to be able to really assess and have clarity on the real factors and what you're trying to accomplish and what we need to do. And at what point and in what ways might we need to tweak it a little bit so that the aim fire uh, uh, or the barrage fire doesn't distract us and it doesn't really get in our way. It doesn't destroy what we're trying to accomplish and things like that. So those are just all some factors that when you're talking about being a leader, it's not just about being a manager and dictating and telling them what to do. That's what a lot of people in societies sort of think nowadays, but that's not being a good leader. That's just dictating. And being a good leader is when your people are really growing and becoming, and as a team, you're becoming much more aware in your strategic clarity of those factors that can be sneaking on the scene that you didn't expect, because there might be some people in another organization, who knows? There might be some people that want to make it so that you don't go here because if you go here, you're going to be better than us, kind of thing, or whatever. I'm saying that just a little bit humorously, but the bottom line is, as a leader, those are just some key aspects that a true leader needs to have in order to truly bring success. And these factors that you brought up and asked about and everything are some of the factors that can come on scene. And you know what? In reality, as they come on scene, you should have an aspect of kind of what that really is and what it affects and what do we truly need to do, because it may be something that small, kind of thing. It may not be something huge, and having clarity on that, and getting your people to the point where they can become and they can really begin to increase their situational awareness when some factors come on scene, and they have the right decision making aspects to minimize the risk, but also still be able to keep us going where we are looking to go.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.